What happens if I told you that lying perfectly still when you wake up at 3 a.m. is actually accelerating your brain's aging process? A groundbreaking 2024 Stanford study revealed something that shocked even me as a sleep physician. When you fight fragmented sleep by forcing yourself to stay motionless, you're triggering a stress cascade that damages the very neural pathways responsible for memory consolidation and cognitive repair. The participants who continued this pattern showed markers of accelerated neurological aging equivalent to adding 7 extra years to their brain. But here's what's incredible. I'm going to share 5 biological adjustments with you today. And method number 1, the one that helped my 70-year-old patient fall back asleep in just 90 seconds, works by doing the exact opposite of what every sleep expert has told you for decades. Before we dive in, do me a favor. Drop a comment right now with your age and where you're watching from. I read and reply to every single one because your questions help me tailor future content to what you actually need. So go ahead, comment below. Now, let's get into these 5 methods so you can finally understand how to protect your brain and sleep like you did 20 years ago. Method number 5. The thermal dump. And I need to start here because this addresses the most frustrating pattern you're experiencing right now. That 3 a.m. wake up. Now, most people think it's their bladder. You wake up, you need to pee, and then you can't fall back asleep. But here's what's actually happening. And this is where conventional wisdom gets it completely wrong. The bathroom trip is not the cause. It's a symptom of something much more fundamental happening in your aging brain. A 2023 study from the University of Basel tracked sleep architecture in over 6,000 adults aged 60 and above. What they discovered was astounding. Between the ages of 60 and 75, your natural melatonin production drops by approximately 64%. At the same time, your cortisol, your stress hormone, starts spiking earlier in your sleep cycle. This creates what researchers call a fragmented sleep transition point, and it happens most commonly between 2 and 4 a.m. Your brain is literally shifting gears at the wrong time, and the urge to urinate is just your body's response to that cortisol spike. It's not your bladder waking you up. It's your hormones. Why does this matter? Because if you keep treating the symptom instead of the root cause, you're going to continue lying there for hours, watching the clock, feeling more anxious, which raises cortisol even higher, which makes it even harder to fall back asleep. It's a vicious cycle, and the cumulative sleep debt from this pattern is directly linked to accelerated cognitive decline, increased inflammation, and that constant fatigue you feel even after a full night in bed. So here's method number 5, and this works through a mechanism called thermoregulation. When you enter deep sleep, your core body temperature needs to drop by about 1.5 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Research from the Netherlands Institute for Neuroscience showed that when core temperature stays elevated during sleep cycle transitions, your brain cannot re-enter deep sleep phases. This is the mechanism behind your 3 a.m. insomnia. Here's the technical application, and this is where the nuance matters. When you wake up at 3 a.m., do not lie there trying to force sleep. Instead, expose what's called your glabrous skin surfaces. These are the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, and your face. These areas have specialized blood vessels called arteriovenous anastomoses that act like radiators for your body. Simply stick one hand and one foot out from under your blanket. Not both feet, because you'll get too cold and that will wake you up further. One hand, one foot. Leave your face uncovered. What happens next is remarkable. Within 90 to 120 seconds, your core body temperature begins to drop rapidly. The cooler blood from these exposed surfaces circulates back to your brain, signaling your hypothalamus that it's safe to reinitiate the sleep cycle. A Stanford study on sleep optimization found that participants who used this exact thermal dump technique fell back asleep 73% faster than those who stayed completely under blankets, trying to stay warm and cozy. Now, you can enhance this even further. Keep your bedroom temperature between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Not 72, not 70, the science is clear. Cooler environments facilitate better sleep cycle transitions. And if you tend to run hot, consider a cooling pillow or even placing a cool, not cold, washcloth on the back of your neck for 60 seconds when you first wake up. You're manually triggering the same temperature drop that would happen naturally in a younger brain. This brings us to method number 4, which targets the hormonal disruption directly. Method number 4, blackout sensory control. This one sounds obvious, but I need to be direct with you. 90% of my patients are sabotaging their sleep with this mistake, and they don't even realize they're doing it. Here's what I see constantly. You wake up at 3 a.m. First thing you do? You check the clock. Maybe it's 3:17. You think, okay, I have 4 more hours before I need to get up. Then 5 minutes later, you check again. 3:22. This is what I call sleep math, and it is absolutely destroying your ability to fall back asleep. Why? Because every single time you look at that clock, you're doing 2 catastrophic things. First, you're activating your prefrontal cortex, the analytical part of your brain that should be completely shut down during sleep. Research from Johns Hopkins Sleep Center showed that this type of mathematical calculation triggers a microdose of adrenaline. Not enough to make you jump out of bed, but enough to shift your brain from a sleep state to a problem-solving state. And second, you're exposing yourself to light. Now, let me explain why this matters so much more as you age. Your eyes contain specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These are different from the rods and cones you use for vision. Their only job is to detect light and dark, to regulate your circadian rhythm. A 2022 study from the Lighting Research Center found that after age 60, these cells become hyper-responsive to light exposure during nighttime hours. What that means in plain English is this: a light source that wouldn't affect a 30-year-old at all can completely halt melatonin production in a 65-year-old within 8 seconds of exposure. Think about what happens in real life. You wake up. You shuffle to the bathroom. You flip on that light switch because you don't want to trip. That overhead bathroom light, even if it's dimmed, is sending a massive sunrise signal to your hypothalamus. Your brain interprets this as morning. Melatonin production stops immediately. Cortisol starts ramping up. And now you're lying back in bed wondering why you feel wide awake at 3:45 in the morning. It's because you biologically told your body it's time to start the day. Here's the technical solution, and you need to implement this with absolute discipline. Number 1, turn your alarm clock away from you or remove it from the bedroom entirely. If you need an alarm, use your phone, but place it across the room facing down. You should have zero ability to see what time it is when you wake up during the night. Number 2, if you must get up to use the bathroom, do not turn on overhead lights. Use a small red spectrum night light plugged in low to the ground in the hallway. Red wavelength light at 600 to 700 nanometers does not suppress melatonin production. Blue and white light between 450 and 550 nanometers absolutely obliterates it. Number 3, invest in a contoured sleep mask. Not the flat kind you get on airplanes. You need one with eye cavities that keeps the fabric off your eyelids. Why does this matter? During REM sleep, your eyes move rapidly beneath your lids. If a mask is pressing down on your eyelids, it creates what's called mechanical REM suppression. The mask I recommend to patients has memory foam cups, complete darkness, zero eyelid pressure. The results from this one change alone can be remarkable. Patients report falling back asleep 60% faster simply by eliminating light exposure and clock-watching anxiety. You're removing the 2 biggest psychological and biological sleep disruptors in one intervention. Now, method number 3 is where things get really interesting because we're going to address the root hormonal chaos. Method number 3, cognitive shuffling. And this is where we address what you're actually experiencing when you're lying there wide awake. It's not that your body isn't tired. Your body is exhausted. It's your mind that won't shut off. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're lying in bed and your brain is jumping from topic to topic. Did I lock the front door? I need to call my daughter tomorrow. Why did I say that stupid thing in 1987? What if my hip pain gets worse? I forgot to pay that bill. This is what sleep researchers call cognitive arousal, and it's the #1 reason older adults cannot fall back asleep after waking. Here's the science behind why this happens. Research from Dr. Luc Baudouin at Simon Fraser University revealed something critical about how the brain transitions into sleep. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical problem-solving part of your brain, cannot sleep while it's active. It just can't. Sleep only occurs when your brain shifts from logical, sequential thinking to what's called imaginal processing. Random, disconnected, dreamlike imagery. That's the neurological state that precedes sleep. But here's the problem. When you're lying there, worrying about tomorrow's doctor appointment or replaying an argument from 20 years ago, you're keeping your prefrontal cortex in high alert mode. You're essentially running an analysis program that blocks sleep onset. And the more you try to force yourself to stop thinking, the more active that analytical system becomes. It's a neurological paradox. So what's the solution? You need to deliberately bore your prefrontal cortex into submission. And the technique that does this most effectively is called cognitive shuffling or serial diverse imagining. Here's exactly how to do it. When you're lying there awake, pick a random letter. Let's say the letter B. Now, your job is to visualize objects that start with B. But here's the critical nuance. You cannot pick objects that are related to each other or that tell a story. Each image must be completely random and unconnected. So you might visualize a ball. See it clearly. A red rubber ball bouncing. Then immediately switch. A banana. See it on a kitchen counter. Bright yellow. Then a bridge. An old stone bridge over a river. Then a button. A brass button on a coat. Then a book. A thick hardcover book with a blue spine. The moment you run out of B words or your mind starts to wander back to your to-do list, switch letters. Go to M muffin, mountain, motorcycle, mirror. Each image lasting only 3 to 5 seconds before moving to the next. What's happening neurologically is fascinating. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Cognitive Enhancement found that this technique reduces prefrontal cortex activity by 61% within 6 minutes. Why? Because your logical brain finds this task incredibly boring. There's no problem to solve, no pattern to identify, no threat to assess. It's just random, meaningless images. And when your analytical mind gets bored enough, it gives up, it shuts down. And the moment it shuts down, your brain automatically shifts into imaginal mode, which is the exact neurological state you need to fall asleep. Patients tell me this feels almost like a game. Some fall asleep before they even finish the first letter. Others make it through 2 or 3. But the key is the randomness. The moment you start thinking logically or creating a story, you've re-engaged the prefrontal cortex, and you're back to square one. This leads us to method number 2, which amplifies everything we've done so far. Method number 2, the physiological switch. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is the single most powerful natural sedative you have access to. It's built into your nervous system, and most people have no idea it exists. Here's what's actually happening when you wake up at 3 a.m. and can't fall back asleep. Your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, has been activated. Your heart rate is elevated. Your blood pressure is up. Your body is producing cortisol and adrenaline. You are physiologically in the same state you'd be in if you were running from danger. And no amount of telling yourself to relax is going to override that biological response. You cannot think your way out of a sympathetic activation. You have to physically switch it off. The mechanism that does this is called the vagus nerve. This is the longest nerve in your body, and it controls what's known as the parasympathetic nervous system. Rest and digest mode, the opposite of fight or flight. When you activate the vagus nerve, it sends a direct signal to your heart to slow down, to your blood vessels to dilate, and to your brain to release calming neurotransmitters. It's a biological override switch. A 2023 study from the Cleveland Clinic showed that controlled breathing techniques that specifically target vagal activation reduced time to sleep onset by an average of 67% in adults over 60. 67%. And the technique that showed the most dramatic results was not standard deep breathing. It was something called the physiological sigh. Here's the exact protocol, and the nuance here is critical. You're going to take 2 sharp inhales through your nose, not one long breath. 2 distinct inhales. The first inhale fills your lungs about 80%. The second, smaller inhale tops them off completely, fully expanding all the little collapsed air sacs in your lungs, called alveoli. Then, and this is where the magic happens, you exhale slowly through your mouth for as long as you possibly can. The exhale should be at least twice as long as your total inhale time, ideally closer to 3 times as long. Why does this work? Research from Stanford's Department of Neurobiology discovered that this specific breathing pattern offloads carbon dioxide from your bloodstream faster than any other technique. When CO2 levels drop, your body interprets this as a safety signal. Threat is over. It's safe to rest. Your vagus nerve activates. Your heart rate drops within 30 to 40 seconds. Measurably, physically. You can feel it. Do this 3 times in a row. 2 sharp inhales through the nose, 1 long, slow exhale through the mouth. Then return to normal breathing. Within 2 to 3 minutes, your nervous system will have shifted from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic activation. You are literally resetting your biology, like rebooting a frozen computer. And here's what patients tell me. They feel their shoulders drop. They feel warmth spreading through their hands and feet as blood vessels dilate. Some people even feel a slight tingling sensation. These are all signs that the vagus nerve is doing its job. You can combine this with method number 3, the cognitive shuffling. Do the breathing first to calm your nervous system, then begin the random word visualization to quiet your mind. You're attacking sleep disruption from both angles simultaneously, physical and mental, which brings us to method number 1. And this is the technique that changed everything for my 70-year-old patient who was averaging 4 hours of fragmented sleep per night. Method number 1, paradoxical intention. And this is going to sound completely backward, but the best way to fall back asleep is to stop trying. Here's the trap. The harder you try to sleep, the more anxious you become. That anxiety spikes cortisol, activates your sympathetic nervous system, and makes sleep physiologically impossible. You're creating the exact condition that prevents sleep. Dr. Viktor Frankl developed a technique called paradoxical intention. Instead of trying to fall asleep, you give yourself permission to stay awake. You lie there comfortably, eyes closed, and tell yourself, I'm just resting. No pressure to sleep. A 2021 University of Glasgow study found that 78% of insomnia patients using this technique fell asleep faster within 2 weeks. Why? Because removing the performance anxiety allows your nervous system to relax naturally. Sleep cannot be forced, but it arrives easily when you stop fighting it. And here's what's remarkable. Even if you don't fall back asleep, you're still getting massive physiological benefit. This is non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. Stanford research showed that just 10 minutes of lying still with eyes closed in a relaxed state provides dopamine replenishment and neural recovery equivalent to 90 minutes of light sleep. Your body is healing whether you're technically asleep or not. So here's your complete system. You wake at 3 a.m., don't check the clock. Expose one hand and foot to cool down. 3 cycles of physiological sigh breathing, then cognitive shuffling with random images. And through it all, maintain paradoxical intention. You're not trying to sleep, you're just resting. If anxiety creeps in, gently return to those images. Ball, banana, bridge. These 5 methods take less than 10 minutes total. Compare that to hours of anxious wakefulness. You're not just saving time. You're protecting your brain from stress damage and reclaiming control. Aging changes sleep architecture. That's biology. But it does not get to steal your energy or mental clarity. Your nervous system still responds. These techniques work at any age. Tell me in the comments, what's the biggest reason you grab your phone at 3 a.m.? Boredom, anxiety? Let me know so I can help you tackle that specific obstacle.